The Power of Discipline. How to Use Self-Control and Mental Toughness to Achieve Your Goals. Written by Daniel Walter. Narrated by Russell Newton. Join a gym. Start a healthy eating plan. Save more money. Stop smoking. The list of New Year's resolutions is endless, but how many of them are ever accomplished? According to Scranton psychology professor John C. Norcross, Ph.D., less than 10% of New Year's resolutions are achieved. If you are listening to this audiobook, there's a good chance that you fall into the large percentage of people who have spent years failing to reach their goals. What's the reason for this? Why is it that the majority of us are incapable of sticking to anything worthwhile? Is failure a natural human tendency? The answer is a simple one: a lack of self-discipline. This audiobook is about taking full responsibility for where you are now and where you want to be in the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. You will develop the most important skill required to achieve the life you desire: self-discipline. Kurt Koppmeyer has spent over 50 years researching and studying success principles and has written several books about the secrets of success. One day, during a meeting, success coach Brian Tracy asked Koppmeyer to explain which principles, out of all those he has discovered, was most important for success. He responded, "There are 999 other success principles that I've found in my reading and experience, but without self-discipline, none of them work." Self-discipline is like a key. It unlocks the door to personal fulfillment and opens the door to the life you've been dreaming of. With self-discipline, the average person can rise further than intelligence and talents alone will take them, and the ordinary person can become extraordinary. On the other hand, an educated, talented person without self-discipline will rarely rise above mediocrity. My desire is that this audiobook will help you do the following: build habits that will transform your life. Gain a better understanding of self-discipline and how important it is in your life. Take control of your habits so that you can take control of your life. You are the only person capable of changing your life. No one can do that for you. The easiest way to change yourself is to change the things you do each day. If you are stuck in a rut with the same story of failure on repeat year after year, this audiobook will get you out of that rut if you apply the recommended principles. If you want to achieve something remarkable but you're not sure how to get started on this journey, this audiobook will serve as a manual for how to get there. If you have attempted to change your bad habits and adopt good ones, only to keep falling back into what you know is keeping you stuck, I will teach you how to break the cycle. If you are unsatisfied with life, you are in a great place because the disgust that you feel for your current circumstances is an indication that you know you are not where you're supposed to be, and you want to change that. Although we don't equate the word disgust with positive action, being repelled by your life can serve as the motivation you need to turn things around. For example, seeing a picture of yourself stuffing a piece of pizza into your mouth with your stomach hanging over your trousers can disgust you so much that you throw your hands up in surrender and vow to get in shape. Having your electricity cut off because you failed to pay your bill can disgust you so much that you can make the decision, once and for all, that you are going to become financially stable. You can have everything you want in life if you are prepared to put in the work, and everything you need to get to your destination is hidden between the pages of this book. If you are ready to stop wasting time on unproductive activities that are leading you in the opposite direction from where you want to go in life, apply the principles you're going to read and expect to experience a major turnaround in your current circumstances. Discover the secrets to self-discipline by scrolling up and clicking the Buy button today. The assumption is that some people are endowed with self-discipline and others are not, but this is not the case. There is a science to self-discipline, and if you want more of it in your life, It will help you get a better understanding of its biological basis. In this chapter, you will learn about the biology of self-discipline and how you can target certain areas of the brain to improve it. The human brain contains an estimated 100 billion neurons, the minuscule cells responsible for our behaviors and thoughts. Neuroscientists Todd Hare and Colin Kammerer conducted a study in 2009 in which they used functional magnetic resonance imaging machines, fMRIs, to record the brain activity that takes place when people are engaging in tasks that require them to use self-control and discipline. The participants were given a choice between accepting a small financial reward at the immediate conclusion of the study or a larger financial reward at a later date. The researchers induced the classic battle between delayed gratification and willpower. They discovered that there was a high level of activity in two areas of the brain called the ventral medial prefrontal cortex and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex when participants were making decisions based on the choices made immediately or in the future. The activity in these regions of the brain was higher when choices were made that would benefit them in the long term. The study concluded that some people find self-discipline easier than others based on the activity and the structure of their prefrontal cortex. The findings of this research are very significant because they highlight the fact that we cannot decide to become more self-controlled and expect to be successful if we haven't developed the skill previously. When you make healthy choices, self-discipline is strengthened. On the other hand, making unhealthy choices diminishes self-discipline. If you find it difficult to say no to sweet treats, you can't stick to an exercise routine, or you can't stop scrolling through YouTube to do something more productive, don't worry. There's still hope for you because you can improve your self-discipline. Delayed gratification. In 2011, the participants of the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment were re-evaluated. The Stanford Marshmallow Experiment took place in 1972, and it was discovered that the participants who found it easier to delay gratification experienced increased activity in the prefrontal cortices. There were also differences in the ventral striatum, the area of the brain linked to addictions, when they were using self-control to make a decision between healthy and unhealthy options. It was also found that the participants who were able to delay gratification were more successful in all areas of life in comparison to the participants in the immediate gratification group. The study revealed that a decision as simple as choosing whether to eat a marshmallow immediately or later determined the way they made decisions in adulthood. The evidence from studies on self-discipline does not point to genetic predisposition as to why some people have higher levels than others. However, we can conclude that self-discipline is a skill you can master if you're willing to put the work in. Weightlifting strengthens the body, and if you target the areas in the brain mentioned in the studies, they will increase in strength. If you are listening to this audiobook, there's a chance you are struggling with self-discipline. I would like to encourage you not to feel saddened by your current circumstances. There's no denying that any skill is easier to master during childhood. However, that does not rule out the possibility of improving your self-discipline now. When exercised consistently, willpower and self-discipline will improve, and you will experience lasting results. All skills operate under the same principle. The more you practice, the better at it you will become. Focus and executive functions. Your level of focus will affect the extent of your self-discipline. Neuroscientists believe that your ability to focus is determined by your executive functions, including working memory, cognitive flexibility, adaptability, and impulse control. Discipline requires you to set goals, filter distractions, control unhelpful inhibitions, prioritize activities, and pursue the goals that you have set. Research states that these functions operate in a number of brain regions, including the anterior cingulate cortex, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. You can improve these brain functions by targeting them. Self-discipline and focus work simultaneously. You can't master one without the other, because discipline is the ability to focus on one course of action until that goal has been accomplished. Willpower fatigue. In the same way as the body gets tired after it's been put through a strenuous workout, willpower and self-discipline also lose strength when they've been put to work and worn down. Since there is a biological basis to these skills, the brain of a person who said no to a slice of cake 10 times is different from the brain of the person who eats the slice of cake each time it is offered to them. This means that even if an individual is extremely self-disciplined with a lot of willpower, it will eventually run out if they are continuously faced with temptation. In the same way, it is possible for a person to lift weights for 24 hours without a break. It is also possible for a person to exercise their willpower for 24 hours without taking the time out to replenish it. In 1996, psychologist Will Baumeister conducted a study in which he evaluated a phenomenon known as willpower depletion. The study involved leaving 67 participants in a room with freshly baked sweets and bitter radishes. One group was allowed to eat the sweet treats, while the other group was told to eat the bitter radishes. They were then taken to another room where they were asked to solve a puzzle to evaluate their persistence. The radish eaters did not have the strength of mind to resolve the puzzle and gave up before the group who had eaten the sweet treats. The radish eaters' inability to focus on the task resulted from the fact that their willpower had already been depleted in the previous task, and now they wanted to take the path of least resistance. Willpower protection. The main priority for the brain is survival. Today, we have enough knowledge to know that temporary low sugar and low energy levels are not life-threatening. However, because of the biology of the brain, it does not know this, and as soon as it receives a warning message that something in the body is out of alignment, it protects you by going into survival mode. When the brain is operating in survival mode, it begins to crave instant gratification, which leads to binge eating and other negative behaviors linked to a lack of self-discipline. Therefore, the best way to build self-discipline is to remove yourself from temptation. For example, if you're struggling with your diet, replace your cupboard of unhealthy foods with healthy choices in meals. When you go grocery shopping, stay away from the aisles selling sweet treats and immediately make your way to the aisles stocking healthy foods. By using these strategies, your willpower is only tested during the time you spend in the store, as opposed to trying to resist the temptation to eat your stash of cookies in the cupboard every evening over and over again. Another way to protect your willpower is to go shopping after dinner. You won't be hungry because you just consumed a filling, healthy meal, which means you're less likely to buy a bag of chips to hold you over until dinner. What you're doing here is creating conditions in which your vulnerability is not used against you, and you are not forced to use self-discipline. Even if you don't struggle with healthy eating, you can use the same strategies for any areas of your life where you lack self-discipline. Stress is another biological factor that contributes to willpower. When we are under pressure, the body protects itself by going into fight or flight mode. In this state, we're more likely to act on impulse and do things without thinking. The prefrontal cortex malfunctions when we experience stress, and the brain is only capable of functioning on short-term outcomes. When the prefrontal cortex is not operating at its full potential, we're more likely to make bad decisions. The principle of discipline is simple. As a mentally stable adult, you know the difference between right and wrong. You understand that if you choose to watch Netflix instead of working on your goals, you will never achieve them. Discipline is about doing what you know you've got to do, even when you don't feel like it. But for your efforts to make a difference, you must be consistent. Slacking off every other day isn't going to get you to your destination any more quickly. Consistency builds momentum, and that's how dreams become a reality. When you're aware of what discipline demands, you are more likely to choose to do the right thing. Remember, there is a biological process to discipline, and similarly to any other habit, the brain is programmed to accept it as the norm the more you practice it. There are several benefits associated with self-discipline that I'll discuss in the next chapter. This has been The Power of Discipline: How to Use Self-Control and Mental Toughness to Achieve Your Goals. Written by Daniel Walter, narrated by Russell Newton. Copyright 2020 by Daniel Walter. Production copyright by Daniel Walter.